Faith, Fiction, and Folklore, or as we like to call it, the Try F Podcast, where we try not to mess the podcast up. And me and my wife saw Iron Lung. It was like, hey, let's watch a movie about a Lovecraftian alien in an ocean of blood. Happy Valentine's Day. Well, really, we wanted to, support Markiplier because we've watched Markiplier for a long time. We like him. I don't play video games myself, but I live vicariously through Let's Players occasionally. And so we wanted to, basically support him and everything like that. And, I had heard the movie was actually very good. My wife kind of had this opinion that it's probably not going to be very good, but, we want to support him and we're going to, whatever he's going to throw his heart into it, however it turns out. So we're going to appreciate it for that. But, it was actually a very good movie from a technical standpoint. Now, I was in a bit of a weird spot because I don't like stories that really play into mood and just kind of lean solely on mood and don't provide any answers and you don't have a clear understanding of the stakes. I don't really like that, but that's kind of the source material from what I understand. And if I was going to, I would prefer Markiplier to be loyal to the source material and put out whatever media he chooses to put out the way it's intended, and that's what he did. So he committed to the story and he played it through, and I respect him for that. And so I can't really complain, even though I'm not a fan of that kind of media myself. But beyond that, it was actually very good from a technical standpoint. The camera work's impressive considering it's a single room and everything like that. And then, Markiplier is actually a really good actor. He can hold a movie by himself, essentially, for 2 hours, which is impressive. And so, I really don't have anything bad to say about it. From my angle, though, the most interesting thing to me about the movie was the fact that it almost took first place the opening weekend. It almost beat Disney. Now, that is a very big deal because Markiplier didn't have studio support. And I thought that was very telling. So what I decided to do is I wrote an article for Mind Matters News about it, and I think this is an omen of good things to come in the future. And yeah, I'm actually optimistic about movies now. But this is another interesting thing, just as an aside before I even get into it, because I'm going to read the article just because I think it's probably going to say what I feel about it better than me just kind of improvising a speech on the whole thing. But before we get into that, I wanted to say that, what's really interesting about the previews, I should say, the previews for the movie, is there weren't actually any remakes. And all the commercials were actually original movies, and some of them were really good. And I looked at my wife when I saw that, and I was like, is it over? Is the age of remakes and leaning on franchises and everything like that finally over? I don't know. I'm a little scared to say that, but if I were to, succumb to optimism, I'm thinking, yeah, maybe we might finally, after north of a decade, be past all the franchises and all the horrible remakes and everything like that. I'm actually a little optimistic about movies, and Markiplier's, movie, I think actually might mark a turning point in cinema, because now you're getting to the point where creators can bring their own audiences, and they're getting big enough that they can do their own marketing. And if you don't have those studios as gatekeepers, that's a really big deal. That lowers the, bar of entry for a film. And so I'm actually super excited about it. I have nothing really to complain about as far as the movie goes. There's been some complaining about the audio in the film. I'm not so much bothered by that because, frankly, that's kind of the nature of the video game. You don't, these kinds of video games anyway. I haven't seen Iron Lungs playthrough specifically, but in that kind of sci-fi horror dystopian type of thing, the broken radio sound and everything, that's kind of a necessary effect. And so I don't I'm not gonna mark the movie down for kind of having bad sound in places. I do really want to emphasize how good of an actor he was. I spent a lot of time in stage, and I met some pretty impressive people during that time. And I met somebody who had taught, I believe he had taught John Goodman and Kathleen Turner, and so I got to interact with him, and I got to be directed by somebody who had met Alfred Hitchcock, and I was also directed by somebody who wrote Greater Tuna. So in my years on stage, you learn a lot about what it means to be a good actor, and the way Stanislavski really defined it was being able to command the attention of an audience while sitting in a chair on a stage and not doing anything, and just looking natural and not feeling like you're compulsively doing things just because you feel like something needs to happen. And Markiplier was able to do that. He was able to command the space and do it rather naturally. And so I was very impressed. And so I recommend the movie a lot. And I have it exceeded our expectations. We thought it was going to be, okay. But for what it was, again, I'm not a fan of the whole leaning entirely on mood thing and not really providing answers and going all in on the history. I'm not a fan of that, or all in on the mystery, and I'm not a fan of that. But from what I understand, that's the source material. Can't fault it for that. So I'm happy with it. I think he did exactly what he needed to do. I think it's a movie worth going to watch. So if you haven't seen it, go watch Iron Lung. That's pretty much long and short of my review. I'm not going to spoil it or give a bunch of plot points away or anything like that. So this isn't going to be a super in-depth review because I want you to actually go see the movie. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm actually going to read the article I wrote for it because I think that's more relevant. So let me just start. Over the weekend, something unexpected happened. Iron Lung, an independent film created by YouTuber Markiplier, gave Disney's Send Help a run for its money. On Friday, Markiplier's film took the lead as the #1 movie in America and held that position right up to the very end. Send Help did take the #1 slot by Sunday, but barely. As an aside, and this is another thing that Markiplier actually impressed me on. It looks like there was some funny business with the people who rank these movies, because for a while, Send Help was #1. It was ranked #1. And then it just mysteriously disappeared. And obviously this was the kind of try to stall the momentum of it so Send Help could eke across the finish line. Because I think these studios are actually very scared of these creators. I think they smell competition and they're trying to thwart that before it gets too extreme. So my advice to any creators that are actually big enough to make these kinds of films is make them quickly and overwhelm them before the studios actually figure out how to counter you. That would be my thought. So anyway, I just wanted to say that this was a big deal, and I want to emphasize how big a deal it is. So anyway, challenging the old guard in theaters is not a new phenomenon. Recently, Angel Studios' David also secured the #2 spot, raking in 22 million during opening weekend. But this is the first time an independent film produced by a single YouTuber with no studio assistance whatsoever has challenged the big dogs. And the fact that the mouse has walked away from this weekend with egg on its face despite being #1 gives me more vindictive pleasure than I can possibly describe. Maybe it wouldn't have quite so much egg on its face if they hadn't hidden the movie halfway through the weekend. But to Markiplier's credit, he just kind of laughed it off and was like, "Where'd I go, guys? Why aren't I on the list anymore? What's happening, guys? Come on." I thought he played that very professionally and very well. Most people would have been like, "This is crap. The system is rigged," and that's true. But pointing that out, everybody then just kind of goes, "Oh, well, you're a victim." So it was the best way to handle that situation. So again, I want to compliment Markiplier for that. So, all right, vindictive pleasure than I can possibly describe. It's just like the movie Rocky. Sure, Apollo Creed won, but nobody cared. Rocky Balboa went the distance, and Iron Lung has done the same. But this news is also timely, and as I learned about the neck-and-neck race between Iron Lung and Send Help, my mind immediately went to one of Cosm's recent events where George Gilder and Ariel Emanuel discussed the future of entertainment. During that conversation, Emanuel explained how the amount of content is going to continue to increase while the cost of production is going to continue to decrease. He then envisioned a world where The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, might create his own television show and basically have his own network. I'm sure that some celebrities from the old way of doing things, celebrities like Mark Wahlberg, who's directed movies in the past, will find this type of world ideal. But when I think about how Markiplier's personal project has just given independent filmmakers the world over a glimmer of hope, an interesting question came to mind. In a world where studios are no longer gatekeepers, how do they continue to exist? And if they exist at all, what incentive would a theater have to favor a studio's movie over an independent creator's film? It's no secret that movie theaters are dying. COVID has all but decimated them. During that period, people were compelled to stay home, and thanks to the vast number of streaming services available, audiences found that they preferred to remain on their couches rather than brave the traffic and tolerate the sticky floors and torn seats of a crowded theater. And it turned out that a large screen alone wasn't enough to draw those audiences back. On top of that, movies nowadays are terrible, which is a subject by itself. But there's a third point I'd like to bring up that's much more relevant to this discussion. The A-list actor has become a thing of the past. Hollywood has decided to focus on adapting franchises rather than promoting their actors, and because of this, most of the few A-list actors who remain have been grandfathered in. They are survivors of an old era. This is a real problem because in the past, the actors who were what drew audiences, and this allowed studios to take chances on a wider variety of stories. Somebody could risk making a movie about someone warning a town about a volcano that's going to blow, Dante's Peak, because Pierce Brosnan was the star, and Pierce Brosnan was James Bond. Really, the movie may as well have been titled James Bond versus the Volcano. Dante's Peak was actually the first movie I ever watched in theaters, and that was kind of how I thought about it. You know, it's like, oh, hey, the guy who played James Bond is going to go take on a volcano. Cool. So, yeah. But then Hollywood decided that it would be more efficient to let stories rather than stars promote the film. This sounded good in theory because they could pay the actors less, but then they made a horrible discovery. Audiences grew tired of the stories. Really, what has been called superhero fatigue may more accurately be described as franchise fatigue. This is a known phenomenon. Westerns went through this, as did biblical epics, rom-coms, and so on. But the difference is that Hollywood is no longer promoting people like Tom Cruise the same way. And on top of that, YouTube has created celebrities that rival the Hollywood elite. Now, Hollywood and the theaters that supported them are in a financial freefall. Then Iron Lung came out, and it looks like there might be a way to bring those audiences back to the theaters. Markiplier said he would be content if 50 theaters accepted his film, but thanks to the persistence of his fans, Iron Lung is now over 4,000 theaters internationally. It might be in more at this point. This was written right after opening weekend, so it may be more theaters. It may be less. I'm not sure if the number's changed, or if the number will have changed by the time this video comes out. But anyway, Iron Lung is now in over 4,000 theaters internationally. And on top of that, the fans actually went to the theater and watched it. And they didn't just watch the film, they promoted it. And their promotion was nearly enough to outpace the marketing power of a major studio. The movie made $21 million at the box office. Send Help made $28.1 million. But here's where things get interesting. Iron Lung cost less than $3 million to make and relied heavily on organic reach. Send Help cost $40 million to make, and while it's more difficult to find their marketing budget, it's a safe bet that the number adds a great deal more to that total. Now, I can't confirm this. What I've heard is that generally the marketing budget will be approximately double what the production cost was. So, in theory, they would need to make $80 million to, make their money back. So I don't know if that's true. That's just the number I've heard. A lot will depend on the drop-off sales during the next few weeks. But since Iron Lung has made such a splash, I doubt that the drop-off will be too much, and Markiplier has probably already made his money back anyway. It remains to be seen whether or not Send Help will make a profit at all. It's on pace to do so, but time will tell. Granted, Markiplier is one of the largest channels on YouTube. He was among the first to make it on that platform. But if Ariel Emanuel is right and AI is about to significantly drop the cost of media production, who's to say that smaller channels won't be able to enter the world of filmmaking as well? If that happens, what kind of deals can those creators make with theaters? I imagine those theaters will fare quite a bit better than they would at the hands of a major studio. If a larger share in ticket sales wasn't incentive enough, the increased competition might motivate the studios to make better deals with theaters as well. Plus, Ariel Emanuel made an interesting point during his discussion with George Gilder. Streamers will create more content since AI will continue making the cost of production cheaper. So imagine YouTubers making not just a film, but a large number of films for their fans. The theater might have a smaller number of people in attendance. Of course, it's hard to imagine the number being much smaller than they are now. Of course, it's hard to imagine the numbers being much smaller than they are now, but there will be a larger number of films available. The theaters, instead of having the same number of movies available for months, could have a higher rotation of movies that will only be available for a few weeks before the next creative work from a YouTuber comes in. That means it's possible to imagine customers not only coming in once every 8 weeks, but once every 3 or 4. Who knows? The theaters might just be able to keep themselves from going the way of vaudeville. I don't think the age of actors will ever return, but I suspect that the time of the creators is on the horizon. And while I don't buy all this singularity nonsense, I do think AI can provide a way for smaller creators to rival studios, if not replace them. AI gives the creators the ability to make vast fantasy landscapes in a matter of seconds instead of requiring weeks of digital creative work to produce one shot. It also gives them the ability to create digital extras, so they don't have to hire a large number of actors. It removes the need for a large number of graphic designers and gives the ability to produce soundtracks in a fraction of the time. All the basic elements needed for creating a film are already in circulation, and if AI continues to advance, the quality of these films will improve alongside it. And the best part for theaters is that Markiplier has shown his fans will flock to their favorite creators' productions, in the same way fans would flock to theaters to see their favorite stars. Imagine a world where the theaters are presenting the productions of local talent, not just the generic films that produced by studios whose creativity is limited to general audiences only. This time of the creators might be inevitable, and whether or not theaters survive will depend on if they adapt to the change or fight it. George Gilder has said technology will lead to superabundance. I think he's right. So there you have it. That's my opinion. That's what I think Iron Lung actually will mean. I think it's an omen of things to come. At least I'm hopeful that it's an omen it is a omen of things to come. A harbinger might be a better word. But, that aside, I do find it fascinating that a YouTuber who has done basically his first major motion picture. Now, Markiplier's done different YouTube projects, but the fact that this first major motion picture was of surprising quality, and I think it's just going to continue to improve. The fact that it's such amazing quality, I think it bodes well for more creators to try this in the future. And I think you're going to see basically better quality content because you're going to see a reemergence of people who actually care about stories, that actually care about acting, that actually care about cinematography. They're not just mass-producing, slop that's committed to a particular formula. Like I said, I don't like the whole playing strictly into mood, and I don't like not understanding the stakes of something outright, but that's a creative choice from a video game, and it breaks the generic formula that Hollywood has been putting out over and over and over again. I mean, essentially what you have is stories that are basically every character is the same character, but it's just recycled a little bit differently. You've got boy on a farm in a sci-fi setting, boy on a farm in a fantasy setting, boy on a farm in a city setting, boy on a farm in a noir setting. And it's all the same basic beats on repeat over and over and over again. And having creators actually making films that are passionate about storytelling will allow for more experimentation. And because they have stable audiences, it will create a market that is going to be able to, tolerate the risk of such kind of like experimental storytelling. And so I'm very excited about it. I hope that Markiplier puts out more stuff in the future. I think he will, given the amount of money he's made on this. I think he has made a tremendous amount of money. So congratulations to Markiplier. That really was a fantastic movie. Again, I'm probably being redundant, but I can't brag on his acting enough. Like, I just was really shocked. I did see one clip from one commercial, and they chose basically one of his weakest delivered lines, and even that's not that bad. And it sounds better in context when you actually see the movie. So, just his performance was just really good, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. The ability to carry a film by yourself is just amazing to me. And the fact that he carried a film by himself in such a small space is amazing to me. So, yeah, congratulations to Markiplier. I was very impressed with the film. My wife was very impressed with the film. And, so I hope you make more stuff in the future. That was wonderful. I'm glad I got to see it. And, if you are a YouTube creator who has a following that's large enough to actually pull a $3 million budget together, I mean, by all means, give this a go. Go call those theaters individually and get on the phone, and who knows, everybody might just be able to replace the studio system altogether, or at least curtail their ability to, stranglehold on the landscape thus far. So that's all I have. Again, Markiplier, congratulations. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you actually enjoyed this video, please let us know how we can improve, or at least let me know how I can improve. And we'll see you next time. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Faith, Fiction, and Folklore. If you did, we would love it if you would subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Rumble. We can also be found on X, Instagram, and Facebook. And we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Thank you again very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.